A short story by Paul McCann. Bobo Goes to College. Bobo was always as busy as a bee with running the show at the Bosco's. There was never enough hours in the day as the resident jack of all trades at the boxing club. As busy as he was, he seemed to get by okay with organising the fights, hosting quiz nights, selling raffle tickets, mixing in with the right crowd, and getting all of the things done that needed fixing. The only real problem Bobo couldn't fix was the accounts. Most of the payments and cash he received was put in a tin, while all the bills and outgoing payments were put in a bin, one on top of the other, and they were plucked out whenever the time was right for them to be paid. The deals and other transactions were made verbally by word of mouth, with a huge amount of trust attached. There was no official daily record kept with a ledger book, mainly due to the fact that Bobo was illiterate. For all of the years Bobo ran the club, he had always managed to get by without any evidence of the running costs, and nothing or no one had ever questioned that until now. It had to happen. Sooner or later, the income revenue called, and they asked for all of the receipts during the past 10 years, as well as account books, banking records, because they were going to conduct a 10-year audit of the business. Bobo tried to explain that most of the figures were all in his head, and if someone was willing to sit with him and write it all down, I'm sure that would be sufficient. Needless to say, the request fell to the floor like a boxer to the canvas after a knockout punch, and the matter was never risen again, for the tax department allocated Bobo 6 months to get all of the paperwork together for the audit. This demand came as a shock for Bobo, and so he had no choice. In order to save the boxing club incurring fines, as well as the threat of closing the doors to the club, it was decided that he would have to go to school to learn how to read and write. Being born an orphan was difficult enough for Bobo in his early years. The challenges he met early on in his life were not easy, and yet he was able to contend well with those, and he grew up without getting to know about things like arithmetic or the alphabet. Those academic skills were not that important for him back then. Reading and writing were other skills that Bobo never had the joy in learning how to do. But now was the hour, and somehow he had to find a school where he could learn how that could be done. And so he did find a place, an evening college. But there was no way that Bobo was going to do that alone. Not at his age. He didn't want to look silly being the only one sitting in a classroom. So he thought about taking another person along for the ride. The only person he could think of who might need a similar education was his good old friend Charlie. But he had to present his proposal as if Charlie needed to go to school and not Bobo. And so off he went looking for Charlie. He walked all around the village, checking out some of the usual hangout spots Charlie frequented, like the handball alley, the football pitch, the playground and the park, and the old tin hut where the card schools were held. And the search went on until Bobo eventually found out where Charlie was. He was inside the Catholic church up in the choir loft rehearsing the hymns for the Sunday Mass. Bobo stood at the front door and he waited for the choir practice to be finished. Bobo stood there watching the little bunny rabbits hop and run all around the green grove opposite the church. As he watched the rabbits hopping around, he thought briefly about maybe trapping the rabbits and making some extra cash for dog food. Finally, the choir practice was over. Charlie came out the front and he was surprised to see Bobo standing there.
"Hi, Bobo! What's going on? I've never seen you here at the church before."
Bobo smiled and he replied, "Well, see, let me tell you, Charlie. I was just chasing them rabbits over there, and then I heard something. It was like the voice of angels singing. So I followed the voices, brought me over here, and I've been standing here listening. The music seemed to be coming from up there, the roof in the church." Charlie stuck out his chest and he said,
"Well, that was me in the choir you heard singing, Bobo. We practice in the loft every Thursday with Father Mark, who plays the organ."
"Well, you know what, Charlie? Sounded like angels to me." Charlie was beaming with pride and he said,
"Father Mark's teaching us to sing in Latin, and he wants us to enter a competition."
"You must be kidding. Are you telling me you're singing in Latin, Charlie?"
"Yeah, me and the other boys in the choir,"
said Charlie. Bobo asked, "You know what, Charlie? I think you should write a letter to the TV station and the radio station and tell them all about the choir. And tell you what, I'm sure they'd put yous all on, and everyone would get to see and hear yous, Charlie." Charlie replied,
"Well, I would if I could, but I can't, so I won't, Bobo, because, as you already know, I can't read or write."
Bobo looked sympathetically and smiled and said to Charlie, "You know what? Well, that's no problem. Because I'm sure there's somewhere where you could learn to write. And if you did, Charlie, your singing career is bound to benefit from that. Bound to." Charlie seemed interested now, and he said,
"Do you really think it would help, Bobo?"
Bobo replied, "I don't think it, I know it. You would be an academic then, and maybe you could even sing opera. You never know, Charlie. This world could be your oyster." Charlie looked very excited and he said,
"Let's go, Bobo. I want to have that oyster. Do you think maybe you could help me find a school where I could learn to read and write, maybe?"
"Leave it to me, Charlie. I'll even go with you to give you some moral support and encouragement."
"Bobo, you know what? You're brilliant."
They both walked through the grove towards the village, thinking about returning to school. So, later in the week, after many inquiries, Bobo enrolled himself and Charlie into a Bridging the Gap course that included a basic introduction to elementary English, as well as an introduction to reading and writing skills. The 6-month course was an evening college in the heart of the city. As the time was drawing near for orientation day, both of the lads were very eager to get started. Now Bobo felt a little bit easier in knowing that he wouldn't be on his own in an empty classroom in front of a teacher who would be asking questions. So on orientation day, What a surprise it was when he saw that the class had almost 30 students enrolled to do the course. After they all sat down behind their desks, everyone was talking amongst themselves, and Bobo whispered, "It's better than chasing rabbits, Charlie."
It sure is, Bobo. I'm chasing a dream now, and I've got my eyes on that oyster.
The teacher called for quiet in the classroom, and then he asked all of the students to introduce themselves to the class and explain the reason why they were there. So when it was Charlie's turn to talk, he started to explain that he was going to become an opera singer, and that by learning how to write might help him with his career. Most of the class weren't interested really, and they were driven into silence with the story, but Bobo spoke up then about how he was involved with running a boxing club, and suddenly he had everyone's attention. This interested everyone. Even the teacher immediately reacted by asking questions about the boxing club. When it was almost time for the orientation day to be over, the teacher called Bobo to one side, and he quietly leaned over and he said, "Could I have a word with you, Bobo, if you have time to spare, after the people leave?" "Aye, sure thing, no problem." All the students had left apart from Charlie and Bobo, who stayed behind, and the teacher closed the door, and he looked at Bobo and he said, "You'll never learn how to do accounting and writing up ledgers in 6 months, Bobo." "Ah, well, in that case then, a boxing club's finished," said Bobo. And he continued, "You see, I've got the taxman doing an audit on the business, and see, I've got all the figures in my head, but not on paper." The teacher took a deep breath and he said, "Watch me, Bobo, and give me your honest opinion." The teacher put up his two fists and he threw a few wild punches, and he kind of weaved and he ducked and he did a bit of fancy footwork, and then he stopped and he looked at Bobo and he said, "I wanted to be a boxer, but my dad wanted me to be a teacher. I had no choice. Do you think I have what it takes, Bobo?" Bobo thought for a moment and he replied, "Well, you know what, personally, I think that your footwork's okay. Your punches need some snapping strength and structure. I could show you a few killer combinations that might help you. And tell you the truth, you know what? It's never too late to chase a dream, so I say go for it." "That's what I really needed to hear. So I would like to offer for free my professional services to help you and Boxo's boxing club. The thing is, as well as me being an educator, I am also an accountant by trade. And with the information you have in your head, I can put together paperwork as proof for the taxman, and that will help you keep the boxing club open." Bobo could hardly believe his luck, and he said, "I forgot all about miracles years ago. But now with your help, I'm a believer again. If you do that for me, I'll make a professional boxer out of you." The teacher smiled and he reached out his hand and he said, "When is my first training session then?" Bobo replied, "Tomorrow morning, and every other morning after that. We start at dawn." Charlie said,
What about my singing lessons then?
Bobo replied, "One thing at a time, Charlie." The teacher seemed interested. He looked at Charlie and he asked some questions about his opera singing. Charlie informed the teacher that Bobo suggested that if he wrote some letters to the television stations and the radio stations telling them all about the church choir, who could sing in Latin, they might get a break and some promotion. The teacher also thought that that was a great idea. And so he offered to write those letters for Charlie to the TV stations and the radio in the hope that the choir could get somewhere on some station, that they could be slotted in and exposed to a bigger audience. When Charlie heard what the teacher said, he was often way up in the clouds, chasing his dream of becoming an opera singer. Bobo nudged Charlie. "What are you doing, Charlie? Come on, it's way past your bedtime. We better get you home," said Bobo. So they said goodbye to the teacher and they made their way to the bus stop. The evening sunset was now trapped by the night, as the stars began to pick their place in the distant sky. Bobo pointed up there somewhere and he said, "Charlie, catch one of those if they should fall and put it in your pocket, for miracles do happen." Charlie put his hand in his pocket and he looked.
Bobo, do you think maybe that teacher could make a professional boxer?
"Well, Charlie, a wise man once said dreams are all we have, and if we place them before other people they better tread very carefully."
You mean like me being an opera singer, Bobo?
"Exactly, Charlie. And maybe we could make some money chasing rabbits too. But let's hold on to our dreams and fight hard to make them come true."
You're brilliant, Bobo. You know what? I'm gonna fight, all right,
said Charlie. Bobo replied, "I'm in your corner, right by your side, Charlie." And later on that year, the auditors had come and checked the books and business records at Bosco's, and with the work that the teacher had done, Bosco's was given the all clear. Also, before the end of the year, the teacher had turned professional boxer, and he won the first fight by a knockout. He was snapped up by a man who was watching the fight, who offered to train him and to manage his boxing career, and tagged him with the name Killer Kid Gloves. Charlie and the boys in the choir had also appeared on national radio and television, and they won the final of the country and city provisional singing competition that went to air all over the country on one of the largest television networks. And life was opening up new possibilities for Charlie and Bobo. The end.